A billionaire walked into an adoption center expecting to change a child's life. Instead, 8 words from a 6-year-old girl in a wheelchair brought him to his knees. Pick someone else. I've been returned 3 times. What happened next would rewrite everything he thought he knew about love, loss, and what it truly means to stay. This is a story that will break your heart and put it back together in ways you never expected. It began on an ordinary morning when Lucas Hale, the man who constructed empires through algorithms and unshakable composure, found himself completely frozen before a little girl seated in a wheelchair decorated with galaxy pattern tape around its edges. Her name was Maya Rivera, and she was about to teach a billionaire the most expensive lesson money could never buy. That very morning, Lucas had emerged from his penthouse overlooking Central Park, another day meticulously scheduled to the second. His driver stood ready. Markets were opening, his phone illuminating with messages from investors. Yet something weightier than profit pressed against his chest. 12 months earlier, his sister Anna had perished in a car collision while he finalized a billion-dollar merger in Tokyo. Since that moment, success had tasted metallic and bitter. The media labeled him the boy genius who transformed guilt into wealth. They were partially correct. He revealed his destination to no one that day. He exchanged his tailored suit for jeans and a hoodie, rode the subway like his broke days in the Bronx, and entered St. Catherine's Family and Adoption Center without the shield of wealth or status. The receptionist blinked in confusion before checking her records. "Just Lucas," he interrupted, his voice subdued. "I'm here to meet Maya Rivera." Dr. Nisha Patel, the caseworker, guided him down a corridor lined with children's artwork, crayon houses, uneven rainbows, hearts drawn larger than faces. "She's experienced difficulty," Dr. Patel explained. 3 placements, 3 returns. She's intelligent and artistic, but trust doesn't come easily to her. Lucas nodded, though his stomach twisted. He had arrived to help, perhaps even to make amends. He hadn't anticipated encountering a child carrying more emotional protection than he possessed. When he saw Maya, everything else seemed to fade away. She sat beneath a sunlit window, her wheelchair angled slightly toward the courtyard. Her hair formed a wild halo of dark curls. A small turtle plush rested on her lap. She didn't glance up until he spoke. "Hi, Maya, I'm Lucas." She examined his sneakers, then his face, as if determining whether he was constructed to endure. "They mentioned you build things," she said. "Apps and robots or something." "I build ways for people to connect," he offered. She shrugged. "People always connect until they leave." Her voice wasn't bitter. It was matter of fact, like stating the weather. Lucas wanted to say something clever, reassuring, adult. Nothing emerged. The silence that followed was heavy. But Maya didn't seem to notice it. She looked past him toward the garden and added, almost to herself, "I'm easy to push, but hard to keep." Dr. Patel cleared her throat, ready to redirect, but Lucas knelt beside the wheelchair. "Do you mind if I sit here for a bit?" She gave a small nod. They talked about turtles, about how the night nurse's radio played old jazz, about why clouds sometimes resembled continents. For the first time in years, Lucas wasn't performing. He was listening. Then Maya spoke the words that would haunt and remake him. "Pick someone else. I've been returned 3 times. Once because I cried too loud. Once because the mom said I reminded her of her own child who died. The last one said she was tired." She lifted her gaze. "I don't want you to get tired." Lucas felt his breath catch. All the noise of New York faded, the horns, the buzz, the ego of the city. "I don't get tired easy," he said quietly. "You will," she answered, her voice small but certain. "They all do." He tried to smile, but his vision blurred. He turned his head, blinking hard. He had cried at funerals, at Anna's empty apartment. But never like this, never because a child spoke truth so clean it stripped him bare. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "You didn't do anything," Maya said, hugging her turtle. "I just don't want anyone to promise they'll stay when they won't." The meeting was supposed to last 15 minutes. It stretched past an hour. When he finally stood, Maya was drawing on a scrap of paper, a stick figure with a round head standing next to a small wheelchair under a crooked sun. She held it out without looking at him. "You can take it," she said, "so you don't forget what I look like. when you change your mind. He took the drawing carefully, as if it might dissolve. "I'm coming back," he said. Maya didn't answer. She just wheeled herself a few inches toward the window, sunlight spilling across her knees. "People always can," she murmured. "It's the staying that's hard." Lucas made it to the hallway before breaking. He pressed his hands against the cold wall, breath ragged. The weight of every deal he'd ever made felt meaningless next to a 6-year-old girl teaching him the cost of abandonment. When Dr. Patel joined him, he didn't bother wiping his face. "Teach me what she needs," he said. "Medical stuff. Care, whatever it takes. I want to learn." She studied him, uncertain whether he meant it. He met her eyes. "I'm not here for charity. I'm here to stay." For the next few weeks, Lucas returned quietly, without cameras, without publicity. He learned how to adjust Maya's wheelchair harness, how to fold her therapy brace properly, how to distract her when the physical therapist stretched her legs until her eyes watered. He learned her schedule, morning medications, school sessions, drawing hour music therapy. Every evening he'd sit by his window overlooking the city lights, replaying her words. One Saturday, Dr. Patel arranged a small field visit. They went to Central Park. The sky was a lazy blue, the kind that made people forget the noise of the city. Lucas pushed her chair slowly down the path, careful not to rush. A saxophonist played near Bethesda Fountain, a deep, soulful tune that made Maya tap her fingers against the armrest. "That song sounds like walking," she said. They stopped for ice cream, vanilla for her, black coffee flavor for him. When he crouched to hand her the cone, a pigeon startled nearby and Maya's chair tilted slightly over a small curb. Her face went pale. The cone dropped. Lucas caught the handles before the chair tipped further, steadying it with both arms. She froze, her breath shallow, eyes glassy. "Hey," he said gently, still crouched. "You're okay. You're safe." She blinked hard, jaw tight. "Don't say that word," she whispered. "What word?" "Safe." Her voice cracked. "Everyone says that before they go." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Lucas stayed where he was, one hand still resting lightly on the wheel. "Okay," he said finally. "No more promises, just ice cream." He picked up the cone, wiped off the melted edge with a napkin, and handed it back. Second chance. This time, she took it. That night, Lucas wrote an email to his board of directors. He told them he was taking an indefinite leave to work on something real. The publicity team panicked. The investors questioned his sanity. But for the first time in years, Lucas didn't care about optics. He was done being a symbol. He wanted to be human again. Days turned into a rhythm. Therapy visits. Story time. Sketches pinned to the wall. Maya started greeting him with half smiles instead of silence. Once, when he asked if she liked superheroes, she shrugged and said, "They always fly away. I like turtles. They stay." And in that small confession, Lucas saw the entire map of her heart. She didn't need saving. She needed someone who would stand still long enough for her to believe he meant it. The headlines came eventually. Young billionaire plays savior at Queen's Adoption Center. Lucas Hale's new charity project. A child in a wheelchair. The photos were grainy. The internet did what it always did. Turned something fragile into a spectacle. The comments were worse. Publicity stunt. Guilt trip with good lighting. Let the man buy redemption, if he can afford it. When Dr. Patel called that night, her voice calm as ever, she didn't mention the media. "Maya saw the news," she said. "She asked if you were famous." He closed his eyes, pinching the bridge of his nose. "What did you tell her?" "That you used to be." It was the kindest possible truth. Lucas decided the only way to drown the noise was to act, not talk. He bought an old brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. Not the glossy kind that made magazines, but one with chipped steps and a backyard full of stubborn ivy. He told contractors to widen the doorways, add ramps, and install an elevator chair between floors. When they asked about the budget, he said, "Build it like someone you love will live here." When he told Maya about the house, she didn't look impressed. "Everyone says things before the papers are signed," she said, coloring a turtle on her art pad. "Promises are like paper shields. They get wet easy. Then we'll make ours waterproof," he said. She didn't smile, but her crayon paused mid-stroke. You think that's possible? I think we'll find out. The night before the court hearing, New York felt heavier than usual. Rain slicked the sidewalks. Traffic lights blurred like bruises across the wet glass. The call had come that afternoon. A former foster family had filed an objection. They claimed Maya had behavioral instability and difficulty bonding, words written by strangers who couldn't handle her courage disguised as defiance. It was enough to freeze the adoption process until a judge reviewed it. That evening, he went to see Maya at St. Catherine's. She was by the window again, tracing raindrops down the glass with her fingertip. They told me, she said before he could speak. Her voice was flat. You can't take me home. For now, he said carefully. It's just for now. She turned to face him, eyes fierce. Did I do something wrong? No, he said quickly. You did everything right. Then why do people keep deciding what happens to me? She asked, and there was no anger in it, only exhaustion. I thought you were different. He knelt in front of her wheelchair, struggling for words. I am different, he said, but sometimes the world isn't. She looked away, jaw set. It's fine, she said, her voice suddenly small. You can stop trying. It's easier that way. The next morning, the courthouse on Center Street was gray and echoing, full of voices that carried too easily. Maya sat beside Dr. Patel, her small hand gripping the turtle plush. She wore a red sweater, the one Lucas had given her after their first trip to Central Park. When their eyes met, she didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. That was enough. When it was his turn to testify, he took the stand, hand steady, voice low. I'm not here because of guilt or headlines. He began. I'm here because a 6-year-old girl taught me what love looks like when it refuses to quit. The opposing lawyer leaned forward. Mr. Hale, you're a billionaire. People will say this is a vanity project. What do you say to that? Lucas looked at Maya. Her eyes were fixed on him, silent but strong. I say they've never met her, he said simply, because if they had, they'd know this isn't about saving anyone. It's about learning how to show up for someone who stopped expecting you to. For a moment, the courtroom was still. Even the clerk stopped typing. Rain had started again by the time they left the building. The sky was a blur of silver. Lucas pushed her wheelchair toward the car, but halfway down the steps, she stopped him. If they say no, she asked quietly, will you still come back? He bent down so they were eye level. If they say no, I'll come back tomorrow. And the day after that, until they say yes. She studied him for a long moment, the way only she could, measuring truth like a scientist. Finally, she nodded. Okay, then I'll wait. When the phone rang at dawn, his chest tightened. It was Dr. Patel. The judge made her decision, she said. Her voice trembled slightly, the first crack he'd ever heard in it. She approved the placement. Lucas, it's done. For a moment, he couldn't speak. He sat on the edge of the bed, breath shaking, eyes wet. Outside, the rain began to lift, sunlight threading through the clouds. He whispered the only words that came to him. We did it, Maya. We finally stayed. The day Maya moved in, the city seemed quieter, as if New York itself had paused to take a breath. It was early spring. The trees along the street were just beginning to bloom, their petals drifting across the sidewalk like soft confetti. Maya rolled down the ramp wearing a denim jacket over a yellow dress, her stuffed turtle perched proudly on her lap. You live here? She asked, her eyes sweeping over the house. I do, Lucas said, but it's about to be our house. Inside, the brownstone glowed with quiet life. Maya's room was upstairs, sky blue with stars painted across the ceiling, and a window that faced a garden. She wheeled inside slowly, her eyes wide. On the desk sat a framed photo of the two of them in Central Park. She looked at it, then at him. You kept this. I keep everything that matters, he said. For a while, she didn't say anything. She reached out, touched the photo, then looked back at him with a small, tentative smile. Then I guess I matter. You always did, he said, and this time she didn't look away. By summer, the garden had become her favorite place. Together, they planted daffodils and sunflowers, Maya carefully tucking each bulb into the soil. This one's Anna, she said one morning, patting the earth gently. Lucas froze. He hadn't told her about his sister. Not really. But Maya had a way of sensing things that weren't spoken. Anna's a good name for a flower, she said, looking up at him. It sounds like something that comes back every year. Lucas swallowed hard. Yeah, he managed. She always did. A year passed. On a bright spring afternoon, they stood together on the High Line, the city stretching endlessly around them. A butterfly, pale blue and trembling, landed on Maya's wheel and lingered. She watched it quietly. That's Anna, she said softly. She found us. Lucas looked at the sky and smiled. Yeah, she always finds a way. That night, as they drove home through the city lights, Maya leaned her head against the window. Hey, Lucas. Yeah, don't pick someone else. He smiled. Never. In the quiet that followed, the streets glowed, the world humming softly around them. It wasn't a sound of wealth or power or redemption. It was a sound of two lives finally learning how to breathe in the same rhythm. In the end, Lucas Hale, the man who once measured life by numbers and headlines, found meaning not in fortune, but in the quiet act of staying. What began as a visit to an adoption center became a journey of healing for both him and Maya Rivera, the little girl who refused to believe in promises until someone finally kept one. Together, they built more than a home. They built a space where pain learned to live beside joy, and where love meant showing up even when it wasn't easy. The story of Lucas and Maya reminds us that redemption doesn't come from grand gestures or perfect endings. It comes from presence. You don't need to be wealthy to change a life. You just need to stay when it would be easier to walk away.